So next I'm starting the gearbox, and here are all the parts to assemble the gearbox. All these gears go into here, and then the cover plates go on. You have to assemble the gears in a certain order, and I also have to assemble the differential with these gears here. I've already pulled them out of their respective bags. Once again, bags from all over. You really have to look for your parts and pay attention to where you're getting your parts from to make sure you got them right. So organization is key. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and start dropping the gears into here, and then I'll check back in before I close the gearbox. I've got the spur gear built to two-piece. This plastic spur slides onto this other gear, and then this tiny little ring goes around there. A little bit of a pain to get on there, but got it on there. Now I'm going to build the differential. I pretty much built the gearbox. It's not much to it. A couple gears in there. You see I've got them heavily lubed. And the little differential in there, I've got that capped off and lubed as well. So I'll put that on there. Then it gets another metal plate, somewhat like the one that I attached on the other side. This one here, the couple of pieces to hold the gears in place. And the spur goes into the side, so the pinion goes in from the side. So I'm going to get this closed up with all the screws that it takes and the hex nuts on the other side. And that'll be the gearbox complete. And then I'll start assembling the drive shafts. So the rear end went together with no problems. The only thing is they asked me to assemble the whole thing with screws all the way around, and then I had to remove those screws to attach it to this. So the manual clearly states to remove the screws from the gearbox before you begin to install it on the chassis. Took those screws out, attached it to the chassis, and now we have what you see here. I also skipped ahead a little bit, and I went ahead and installed this little clip here. This holds the battery tray in, and without this clip, this battery tray swings every time you pick the chassis up. So I skipped ahead and went ahead and put that in just to stop that from swinging and save my sanity a little bit, because I was starting to get mad at it. So anyway, the gearbox is on, as you can see, and now I'll go ahead and start attaching the rear suspension and the drive shafts and all. So I'm beginning construction of the strangest rear end I think I've ever seen in RC. These posts go through here, which is not so abnormal, and that controls the dog bone. But this boot goes over it, which in itself is not abnormal, but then it gets put into this large plastic, I'm not sure what this is, and the dog bone outputs through this. Here is where you should change your plastic bushings for bearings. This will be the first time I've ever used plastic bushings, but this is an exhibition vehicle. I won't be driving it much, so these plastic bushings will do just fine. If you plan on using this vehicle for anything at all, even any remote off-road use, I would not put those plastic bearings in. Go ahead and get you some metal bearings or some sealed rubber bearings to get in there. These wear out. They do okay for a while, but then they'll wear out, and you'll have to replace them anyway. So just go ahead and get you some bearings and put in there. With that aside, I'm gonna do this pretty much standard. You have to cut this boot into sections. You can see the large rib where you cut it into sections. Get that installed onto this rear end. So I wanted to show how the dog bones go into the little boot. You have to grease them first. I was having a pretty tough time getting them in there because I was going to grease them afterwards, but if you grease them first, it's a lot easier. You just slide it in there, get one in through and kind of just pull it on through, and it slides right in. Then you attach these as the manual says. So I've got the rear end assembled, and it gets secured by this plate that slips onto this round part here. It gets screwed in there with 2 screws right there and there, and that holds the back end on, gives it a little rotation. So get those secured, and that's it for the rear end. And then next on, I moved on to the shock damper that sits here and provides a little leverage.